Welcome to Human Monsters. May 27th, 1978, Walterboro, South Carolina. The residents of that quaint little town were disturbed that one of its residents, 26-year-old Gwendolyn Elaine Fogel, was found dead after being assaulted, raped, and murdered in her home. She had just babysat for a friend and was looking forward to seeing her immediate family the next day, as they were due to celebrate her mother's birthday. Elaine left her friend's home at the end of her babysitting shift at around 11:15 p.m. and stopped off at a store called the Zippy Mart on the way home, so she would have arrived at her house at around 11:30 p.m. Elaine's roommate, Nancy Hooker, was dropped off by her boyfriend after their time spent at an Amway fair in another town at about 1:45 a.m. The lights were on in the house, which struck Nancy as odd because normally Elaine didn't stay up that late. Billy, Nancy's boyfriend, used Nancy's key to unlock the door. He and Nancy were shocked by the scene that awaited them. Elaine was splayed out on the living room floor in front of the couch. She was partially naked. She was unconscious. This display was too much for Nancy and Billy to take in, and they made a mad dash for the Walterboro Police Department. They told the officers that they couldn't tell if Elaine was living or dead, only that she had been badly beaten and possibly raped. When the police arrived at Elaine and Nancy's house, they checked Elaine for a pulse. There was none to be found. When EMS arrived, they checked for vital signs and determined that Elaine had perished. Elaine was found lying on her back in front of a hook rug in front of the couch. One foot was on the couch and the other was on the floor. She still had her shoes on. She was naked from the waist down. Her bra and shirt had been pulled up around her neck. Her head and face had been drenched in blood. A metal fire poker had been wrapped around her neck. A trail of blood led from inside the doorway to where her body lay on the rug in front of the couch. This indicated that she was dragged from the doorway to the couch at some point during the attack. The front door was locked when Billy and Nancy arrived, suggesting that the attacker may have been in the house before Elaine arrived home. They speculated that as soon as she took her first step into the house, he delivered the first blow and from there locked the door to prevent her from escaping. The items Elaine was beaten with were dubbed weapons of opportunity by the investigators, such as a lamp, a smiley face bank, a walking cane, and the poker. The living room was in absolute disarray. Items were thrown all over. Blood was splattered everywhere. The coroner found deep contusions and linear abrasions on her hands and knuckles, which he concluded were incurred when she tried to defend herself against the attacker's blows. He concluded that her death was caused by severe head injuries and strangulation from the metal fire poker wrapped around her neck. Police discovered that the assailant entered the house by smashing a window in back. There were shards of broken glass on the dining room window and footprints outside 3 windows, representing 3 attempts made by the attacker to break into the house. Nancy's room had not gone unmolested. The intruder ransacked the drawers of her dresser. He threw her bikini panties hither and thither. His approach was aggressive enough that Nancy's dog was hiding under her bed, shivering. Though Elaine's car was in the driveway, the keys could not be found. Elaine worked for a prominent physician, and when he heard the keys were stolen, he had all the locks changed at his clinic. As the attacker left the scene, he threw a pair of Elaine's jeans, which were soaked in blood, on the back roof of the house. Investigators photographed and collected evidence at the scene. Among materials submitted for evidence were fingerprints, palm prints, blood, hairs, clothing, and items from the home. They were submitted to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Forensic Lab. They were also submitted to the Medical University Forensic Lab for more examination. Elaine was born on December 15th, 1951, in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Once she graduated from Orangeburg Calhoun Technical Education Center in 1972, she relocated to Walterboro and worked at Colleton Regional Hospital. There she worked as a laboratory assistant. She was later offered a position as a medical assistant in the office of Dr. Joseph Flowers, which she accepted. Dr. Flowers described her as hardworking and diligent. To quote Dr. Flowers, she would go out of her way to help people. I am deeply distraught over her murder. It is very difficult for me to accept. I don't know of any finer person than Elaine. A friend gave their tribute to Elaine. Elaine became a real part of the community soon after she moved here and made friends easily. She was a dedicated worker, took children to baseball games, and sang in the choir at St. Jude's Episcopal Church. She had a cute kind of shyness about her and had the biggest heart. We never heard her say anything unkind about anybody. Elaine was starting to have a lot going for her and recently started taking night classes at Baptist College in Charleston, South Carolina, to pursue her college degree. She had also completed some local art courses. One of her dreams was to become an accomplished artist. When Elaine's mother, Miriam, was informed about Elaine's murder, she was distraught, to say the least, saying, "She was coming to see me on my birthday today. Oh my God, my daughter was murdered on my birthday." When her father was informed that she was killed with a fire poker wrapped around her neck, he put his head in his hands and said, "Oh my God, I gave her that fire poker. She kept it next to the front door for protection." This is the text from the autopsy written by Dr. Frank Trefny, based on his examination of Elaine Fogel's remains. This autopsy is performed at the request of and after due authorization of the coroner of Colleton County in the autopsy room of the Colleton Regional Hospital on May 28, 1978, at approximately 9 a.m. Post-mortem examination and autopsy of the body of the deceased, a white female, revealed the presence of a black metal fire poker around the neck. It took 2 people to remove the poker from the neck. When removed, this leaves an abrasion and a pattern injury with cross-hatching, which has the same pattern trait as the handle of the fire poker. Multiple contusions, abrasions, and lacerations are present about the face and head. The facial features are distorted. A contusion over the right forehead shows the same cross-hatched pattern as the handle of the fire poker. Contusions and linear abrasions are present on the right hand. The abrasions on the right hand are a slightly cross-hatch pattern, similar to, but lighter in color than those on the neck and forehead. There are abrasions, contusions, and small lacerations over the knuckles on the right hand. The injuries are classified as defense wounds resulting from repeated attempts of the deceased to defend herself from her attacker. Large amounts of blood are also present on both hands. Patterned injuries in the form of abrasions are present on the abdomen. Examination of the trunk reveals multiple semi-elliptical abrasions on the lower portion of the right rib cage and onto the right upper quadrant of the abdomen. A similar configuration is seen on a piece of broken pottery in the same room of death. On the abdomen area, there is a pattern in blood that has a sort of ribbed shape. There is a slightly ribbed pattern in blood present on the left arm, resembling the ribbed pattern on the abdomen. The blood of the deceased, Elaine Fogel, is typed and documented as O positive. Scrapings are removed from beneath the fingernails of each hand, which include soft tissue and skin. The skin shows a slight amount of pigment present. The materials obtained beneath the fingernails of the deceased are placed in appropriately labeled containers and deferred to the histology laboratory of the Medical University of South Carolina. Examination of vaginal and rectal smears taken from Elaine's body at autopsy revealed the presence of large numbers of spermatozoa. Examination of oral smears revealed no spermatozoa. The finding of large amount of spermatozoa present indicates the deceased had been sexually assaulted. The smears of spermatozoa present are placed in appropriate labeled containers. The pubic hair is combed, and pubic hair is also removed from the skin and placed in appropriately labeled containers. His conclusion as to the cause of death was asphyxiation caused by the fire poker, and that it was a homicide. Crosshatch abrasions on her right hand and arm indicated that she was assaulted by the fire poker several times before she was strangled. May 30th, 1978. The following items were transferred to the possession of Lieutenant R.C. Carter of the Walterboro Police Department by Dr. Trefny. 1. Combings, pubic hair. 2. Pubic hair pulled from skin. 3. Fingernail scrapings, left hand. 4. Fingernail scrapings, right hand. 5. Black metal poker in plastic bag. The fingernail scrapings were then sent to the Medical University of South Carolina by Lieutenant Carter. There they were signed over to forensic pathologist Dr. Sandra Conrad for her evaluation. June 1st, 1978. The Walterboro newspaper, Press and Standard, printed the following article about the murder with the headline, "Police Seek Woman's Murderer." Law enforcement officials are seeking an unknown assailant who brutally murdered Walterboro resident Gwendolyn Elaine Fogel on Saturday, May 27th. Walterboro Public Safety Director Ken Davis reported that she was attacked as she entered her home at 210 South Lomax Street that evening, sometime around 11:30 p.m. Her home is just across from the Carleton Regional Hospital, which is normally a tranquil neighborhood. Elaine had apparently struggled with her assailant and may have inflicted scratches or other marks on his body. Director Davis is asking anyone who had observed any black or white male with scratches, cuts, or bruises on his body to call the Walterboro Police Department or Carleton County Sheriff's Office. Any person with information will be kept anonymous. Evidence has been collected from the scene and is being processed by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, and the Medical University of South Carolina. The first lab reports are expected as soon as the next few days. Davis declined to elaborate further on the evidence, stating that, "We don't want to disclose our leads until they're fully developed. It might hamper the investigation." Several suspects have been questioned based on their previous records, but all has since been eliminated as suspects. A $1,000 reward has been offered by a Walterboro resident to anyone furnishing information that might lead to the arrest and conviction of the assailant, but far more important than any monetary consideration is the need to get a dangerous man off the street. The Carleton County Medical Auxiliary, along with Friends of Elaine, have started an Elaine Fogel Scholarship for Walterboro area high school students. $250 will be awarded annually to a graduate of any school in Carleton County to further their pursuit of an education in the allied health careers field. This investigation will remain on the front burner, and we will be working on it every day. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, provides assistance to police when investigations go cold. In this case, SLED analyzed the many rolls of film consisting of crime scene photos taken at the scene, which were highly detailed. Fear and paranoia swept over the community of Walterboro. Women were afraid to venture out alone, especially at night, or to be home by themselves. Men feared for their families. July 5th, 1978. SLED agent Chad Caldwell met with Dr. Trefny, and the following samples were exchanged so they could be analyzed at the SLED lab. SLED agent Chad Caldwell met with Dr. Trefny, and the following samples were exchanged so they could be analyzed at the SLED lab. 1. 1 glass vial containing vaginal smear from Elaine Fogel. 2. 1 glass vial containing rectal smear from Elaine Fogel. 3. 1 glass vial containing oral smear from Elaine Fogel. September 1978. The Press and Standard published this update on the investigation. Elaine Fogel's assault and murder remains a mystery, but law enforcement officials indicate that the case is still being pursued actively. Walterboro Police Chief Ken Davis said, "We have not put the case on a back burner, and we won't. It is still very active, and something is done on it every day. We feel confident that we're going to get him, but we can't put a timetable on it at this time." Lieutenant Bob Carter, chief investigator on the case, reported that all persons arrested in the area are being checked out, as well as persons in other cities and states. Both officers have indicated that nothing conclusive has come out of the crime scene evidence that is still being processed at SLED and the Medical University of South Carolina. Locals with criminal records consisting of violence and sex offenses were approached by law enforcement and their prints were taken. Polygraph tests were also run, but none of the people tested were found to have given deceptive answers. Elaine's parents ran into a brick wall when it came to the Walterboro Police Department, who were not willing to explore any alternative methods of investigation. Elaine's parents approached a psychic, but this did not help. They asked the police chief if it might boost the investigation if the case appeared on the television program Unsolved Mysteries, but they were told it would not help. July 1985. The investigation did not accrue any useful new leads, and the Walterboro Police Department could not bring itself to kick this dead horse anymore. SLED Lieutenant Chad Caldwell filed this as the only pertinent information for its time. No further information or new leads have developed in this investigation. Therefore, this investigator is closing the investigation until new information resurfaces. As the need arises, the case will be reopened. This case is closed. August 1989. SLED installed a behavioral sciences unit. Behavioral sciences had become a successful investigative tool for the FBI, so SLED decided it would be crucial in their efforts to solve cases. SLED behavior profiler Captain David Caldwell consulted with the FBI's behavioral sciences unit in Quantico, Virginia. This is the profile of the offender they emerged with through their best attempts at speculation. This description of the offender consists of best estimates and are not 100% accurate. White male, based more on forensics than behavior. Age 24 to 30, married, extremely strong to be able to bend fire poker around her neck. Probably lived close to scene, likely to have walked. May have seen victim and roommate outside at home at some point. Excessive drinking, may have been drinking prior to the crime and or using marijuana. Local arrests for assault. Problems with women. He has a problem with authority. Elaine fought back. He couldn't handle that. He did not go to the funeral, and within a few months that followed, he might have left town. Wherever he has almost certainly come to the attention of law enforcement for something and has spent part of his life over the last 11 years in and out of jail. Also documented in Caldwell's report were his miscellaneous notes of findings at the crime scene. Forced entry through rear window. Weapons of opportunity were used in attack. Fire poker around Elaine's neck belonged by door near corn sheller. Elaine had defense wounds to hands. Living room is only scene of attack activity. Old lady type panties on couch. Roommate's room was ransacked. Drawers open. Bed ruffled. Bikini type panties in trash can and on chest. Elaine's car keys missing, but car still in driveway. Elaine's bloody jeans on roof at point of exit. Semen from Elaine's body found at autopsy. Fire poker required 2 persons to loosen at autopsy. Elaine's father died 2 years after her murder of a broken heart. November 1991. A man shouted up to Elaine's mother's house, asking her if she had a gun. She said she had. The man broke into her house from the back. She tried calling the police, but he had cut the connection on the outside. When he tracked her down inside, he knocked her to the floor, hitting her several times. He threatened to rape her, but she told him she had AIDS, and he backed off. He stole $5, some costume jewelry, and fled the scene. He threatened her, saying, "If you come out of the house, I'll be waiting in the yard, and I'll kill you." She reported the incident to the police the following morning, assured only then that he had left. Elaine's mother died in her sleep in 1999. Mr. and Mrs. Fogel were buried next to Elaine at St. George Church Cemetery, close to Bolin Town, South Carolina. (2010) SLED, during the process of re-examination, took a close look at a pair of panties found at the crime scene. This time around, the presence of both male and female DNA was found. Simply put, blood was found on them. The female DNA was confirmed to have Elaine Fogel as a source. The male DNA's point of origin remained a mystery. The panties found at the scene were cut in the form of what came to be known years later as granny panties. One of the investigators contacted both Nancy Hooker, Elaine's former roommate, and Elaine's sister, and they both confirmed that Elaine preferred to wear granny panties. This represented the ongoing struggle to find the identity of the offender after all those years. August 20th, 2015. One of the investigators realized that so much emphasis was placed on DNA, like blood and semen samples, that little or no regard was given to finger and palm prints. She consulted with print examiner Tom Darnell at SLED. He found a Polaroid with a palm print, and the identity of the person who left the print was determined to be 58-year-old Willie Butterfield. The name had not come up before, nor had his racial identity, which had him as an African American. Up to that point, investigators believed the perpetrator was a white male. Butterfield was arrested in 2002 for an attack on a woman. Butterfield walked past the scene of the crime as police were interviewing the victim. One of the investigating officers considered him to be a person of interest, and he interviewed Butterfield. He noted that there was blood on Butterfield's jeans at the time. A DNA swab was placed on Butterfield's mustache. It was sent to SLED, who proved that it was a match for male DNA found on the victim. The woman had been beaten with a lamp. One of the investigating officers looking into Elaine's case recalled that she was beaten with several objects that were immediately discoverable in the living room. Elaine, too, had been struck with a lamp. The victim recounted a statement made by the attacker. "The man that attacked me told me, 'If you don't do what I say, I will kill you, because I've already killed one woman.'" Submitted to the automated fingerprint identification system, Butterfield's prints were found on the shards of the window that was broken at Elaine Fogel's house. When looking into Willie Butterfield's criminal record, investigators found that his history as an offender was long and varied. He had been in and out of jail since 1979. During that year, He was arrested for the rape of a 19-year-old woman. As the victim described it, she was walking to her mother's house, and a pickup truck passed her several times before it reversed and stopped. She knew the man as Willie Butterfield. He forced her into the truck through gunpoint. He drove them to a forest, ordered her to disrobe, and raped her. Subsequent to this, he tied her feet together and said, "I just might kill you before this is all over." With that, he got back in the truck and drove off. She managed to get to her mother's house later and reported the attack to the police. The assault occurred about 10 months after the murder of Elaine Fogel. Butterfield was 20 years old at the time. Butterfield's sister notified a detective that Willie was in a psychiatric facility. Probing into this, it was found that Willie Butterfield was arrested by SLED in April 2010 at the age of 53. He and 28-year-old Deborah Allen were charged with the unauthorized removal of a corpse, desecration of human remains, and grand larceny. These charges followed a report submitted by the daughter of 83-year-old Willie Singleton Sr., which noted that his remains had gone missing. On March 26th, Colleton County Sheriff's deputies and officers of the Walterboro Police Department found Mr. Singleton's car at Cambridge Point Apartments. While searching the vehicle, they found Mr. Singleton in the trunk. It was later established that Singleton died in a motel in the presence of Butterfield and Allen. Allen was charged with grand larceny for taking possession of Singleton's car and ditching it at Cambridge Point. In April, Willie confessed to placing Singleton in the trunk and implicated Deborah in the crime. In 2013, after an extensive psychiatric evaluation, Willie Butterfield was proven to be mentally incompetent to stand trial. He was committed to Crafts Faro State Mental Facility in Columbia, South Carolina. September 8th, 2015. After the panties were resubmitted to SLED's DNA lab for analysis with the objective of finding a match for Willie Butterfield's profile on the garment, a match was found. October 22nd, 2015. One of the investigators received this final report from SLED. The DNA profile developed from item 26.1, cuttings from panties, is a mixture of at least two individuals. Elaine Fogel and James Willie Butterfield cannot be excluded as possible contributors to this mixture. The Y-STR male contributor profile developed from item 26.1.1, cuttings from panties, matches the Y-STR DNA profile developed from James Willie Butterfield. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated male individual having a Y-STR profile matching this item is approximately 1 in 8,600. James Willie Butterfield was charged with murder, criminal sexual conduct first degree, and burglary first degree. December 3rd, 2015. This article was published in the Charleston Post and Courier. The family of Gwendolyn Elaine Fogel never gave up hope that her killer would one day be found. They broke down in tears Tuesday when police announced they had made an arrest and that James Willie Butterfield was charged with murder, first-degree criminal sexual conduct, and first-degree burglary. The keys to the arrest were preserving evidence collected at the crime scene until technology caught up with it, and assigning a dogged investigator and retired SLED agent to sift through it until they could nail a suspect. Family members were called to the Walterboro Police Department Tuesday to be told about the arrest. James Fogel, Elaine's cousin, said, "We just sat there in silence for a few minutes. We've been waiting on this for 37 years. The reaction was just tearful. It's not about us, it's about Elaine. Elaine was a good person. She didn't have any enemies. It's just a shame that happened to her. I know it's not over till he's in the slammer, but we can have some peace of mind now." After years of dead ends, Chief Wade Marvin assigned the case to investigator Corporal John Johnson in May. Corporal Johnson said, "This is the first time I have ever taken home work. I lost track of the hours spent at night going through the case files, but I felt like I owed it to the family. The case needed a new set of eyes and someone to stay on it." Johnson worked closely with Rita Schuler, a retired forensic photographer with SLED. She had helped keep the case alive. She included Elaine's unsolved case in one of her books she had written on crimes in South Carolina, small town slayings in South Carolina. Schuler says, "Thank God for the evidence that was preserved. That was the key to solving this case." February 2017, it was confirmed after a third evaluation that Willie Butterfield was not competent to stand trial. Willie Butterfield continues to reside in the state psychiatric facility on the taxpayer's dime. At least Elaine Fogel's family can be at peace knowing he faced the music and will never be free to stalk the streets and target women again. Thank you for listening to Human Monsters. Bye for now.